Get ready for your unofficial dental hygiene podcast. These are the tales of two hygienists, one East Coast RDH and one West Coast hygienist. Listen as they tackle the profession of dental hygiene with humor and enthusiasm. Now, please join Michelle Strange and Andrew Johnston as they tell you a tale of two hygienists. Hey everyone, we're excited to bring you a bonus episode sponsored by Air Techniques. Air Techniques makes so many products. One of them is the Monarch line for infection control. It's a very cool line that we are going to chat all about in this podcast. We start this interview off with a few people from the corporate office, and they give us a little bit more about the company. Andrew and I truly believe that we take our time to vet some of these products because we want to make sure we bring you the best. And when you learn about the companies and their philosophies and how they started and why they do what they do, I just think it brings it a little bit closer. It's a little more personal versus you just popping open in that tub of wipes and getting at it. So we're excited to dive in a little bit to who Air Techniques is. And then we bring in Patty DeGangi to talk about the clinical side and some of the other products that Air Techniques has, and so much more with Patty, as always. So I hope you enjoy this bonus episode. Again, we partnered with Air Techniques to bring you a little bit more about the company and the amazing products that they have. You can find more at airtechniques.com. I hope you enjoy this episode. Well, I'm really excited for this interview portion of the podcast. I love chatting with companies and learning, kind of deep diving into the company and the philosophy and what they're really about. So I'm excited to talk to Air Techniques today. So I would love to welcome Christine and Nicole to the podcast. Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Hello. Very good. Thank you. And so I want to just jump right into this. I would love if you could tell us about Air Techniques and, some things like how long has the company been in dental and how did Air Techniques become a global corporation, or at least a global corporation that it is today?
Great. So I can answer that. Air Techniques has been a leading innovator and manufacturer of dental products since 1962. And in 1962, the founders pioneered the breakthrough dry air solution known as DentoDry. And the DentoDry was a high capacity compressed air dryer for the dental system. And this was the first time dentistry's need for dry, low humidity compressed air was successfully addressed. Soon after DentoDry took the market by storm, Air Techniques quickly became an industry leader, bringing many first-time advances in both utility and digital products to dental professionals. But you know what? I also wanted to add, Dirt Dental, who was our parent company, was founded in 1941. And in the late 60s, Air Techniques and Dirt Dental started a joint venture. And Dirt Dental integrated our breakthrough dry air technology into their compressors. And also, Dirt Dental invented the first evacuation line cleaner back in 1965. And then they went in to launch a complete color-coded infection control line in Germany 20 years later. And I know we're going to get to the infection control later, but it's definitely important to note that we're just not a utility and digital company. We have a full line of infection control products, not only from our parent company, but internally as well from Air Techniques.
That's fabulous. So I would love to know a little bit more about your corporate headquarters. What are some of its capabilities?
So our corporate headquarters are super impressive. We have over 230 employees in a 200,000 square foot facility in Melville, New York, which is located in Long Island. And again, the staff in New York not only serves North America and Canada, but we serve Australia, New Zealand, Asia, China, Latin America, the Middle East, and Africa. And today, with our global headquarters and FDA-compliant manufacturing site in Melville, as well as through a trusted network of valued dealer partners, The dental industry worldwide looks at us for advancements in technologies, and our solutions are empowered not only by our passion for perfection, but also for dedication and precision. Something else I also want to mention is on top of our state-of-the-art manufacturing facility, we have an on-site training center, testing labs, customer and technical support center, as well as dozens of people that support the engineering and the R&D teams that are located in Melville.
That's fantastic. So I know Air Techniques because of the phosphorus plates used for radiographs for years. I loved, and I still love those as a digital option. I'm just curious, like, what has and is Air Techniques known for within the industry?
So for almost 60 years, Air Techniques has exceeded our customers' expectations by delivering innovative, high quality products that advance the standard of dental care. And today we ensure that today's dental professionals are equipped for life. So earning trust through ingenuity, innovation, and stellar service. So we're an advanced technology partner. We provide superior customer solutions that's essential in this digital age. We have products ranging from infection prevention to digital to utility. Anything you need for your mechanical room, we're the number one provider. We're the market leader. So we really are known for our utility products, but we've been digital for almost 60 years, as you mentioned with the PSP plates. So we really have the full gamut of products for your practice.
That's awesome. And you also, Air Techniques also launched the Monarch line in 2013. Can you tell me what kind of led to that decision to get into infection control?
So I'm going to answer that question. So just as our founder, Jack Albert, saw a need in the market, we saw the need for a new initiative back a few years ago in 2013. So we had breakthrough solutions already within the digital and utility categories. And so we were looking to diversify our portfolio and move into merchandise. So, and at the time, we reviewed opportunities that fit our competencies, but also tied in with our equipment products. So Air Techniques made a strategic decision to launch Monarch in 2013. And if you haven't heard about Monarch, Monarch is a complete infection control line that's very innovative and highly effective. So it is specifically designed for the dental practice. So it includes products for surfaces, instruments, hands, and equipment. And the formulations are specifically designed with the staff and patients in mind, as far as safety, effectiveness, and efficiency.
So it's also color coded. Am I correct?
That is correct. Yes. And so we actually adapted that system from our parent company, Durodental, who is a leader in infection control in Europe. And so they have been, as Christine mentioned earlier, selling infection prevention products since the mid-'80s. And the color coding has been proven to be a very effective system. So Monarch's complete color-coded line of products really make it easy to use the right product for each job. So we have green for the surfaces, or surface disinfection, blue for instrument cleaning, and pink for the hand protection, and yellow for equipment maintenance. So really dividing these cleaning and disinfecting products into these distinct color groups leaves no question as to which product should be used or to clean which area of the operatory. So it really creates a functional system that you can follow, even for those who are less experienced or practiced at infection control and treatment turnover.
The color-coded system seems brilliant to me. I mean, it just... Unless you're colorblind, of course, but I don't think many of us in the dental profession are. But I always gravitate towards companies that have that color-coded system. It just makes it so easy to know where you're using it, what it's going to be used for.
Absolutely. And as far as the product line goes, so we have the surface disinfectant, which is in the green category, and it switches extremely fast. It has a kill time of 1 minute. It kills TB viruses, bacteria, and fungi. And so it also kills the human coronavirus and is listed on the EPA's N list, the wipes and the spray disinfectant.
And so that's the emerging infectious diseases, correct?
Correct. That is correct. Yes.
Perfect.
And then in our blue category, we have our instrument cleaner. It's a non-toxic cleaner, and its surfactants are specifically formulated to remove the bioburden from the instruments while at the same time protecting them. And in our pink category, we have our hand sanitizer, which effectively kills the bacteria and the germs on your hands. But at the same time, it leaves your hands feeling really silky and smooth afterwards. Even after repeated use, it doesn't dry out your hands.
And it smells really good.
Oh, thank you. And then in our yellow category, we have our equipment cleaners, which is our dental unit water line cleaner or lines cleaner, and then CleanStream, which is our evacuation system cleaner. And again, these cleaners are really safe and effective to use to protect the patients, the team, and the equipment.
And you have a really good way of hooking the suction up to the bottle, which I think is fantastic. And you can find those videos on YouTube as well, listeners, if you are like, what is she talking about?
Yes, it's a very unique delivery system. Yes.
Which is a lot of your products, just very unique. I got to say, your hand sanitizer was heaven sent because I got some at OSAP meeting at the booth. You guys were very generous with your sampling, and COVID-19 happened where pretty much I could have made a killing off of the hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
So I would also love to know about the educational courses you provide for doctors and for dental hygienists or other clinicians.
We have consistently refreshed our continuing education offering when it comes to our entire product line, not only our line of infection prevention products. We have a strong product portfolio in regards to all of our product lines, and we feel it is our job as one of the dental industry's trusted brands to dealers and dental professionals worldwide to not only educate but inform. And you can check out our website under the events tab to find out our newest webinars and events.
That's awesome. Well, I do want to thank you both, Christine and Nicole, for coming on and chatting with us and telling us a little bit more about Air Techniques. And next up, we have Patty DeGangi. She and I chit chat about the Monarch line and talk a little bit more about the clinical application of the products. I'm really excited. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So listeners, I do want to thank again Air Techniques for this episode and for bringing Miss Patty DeGangi on. Thank you so much. She's a return guest. It's been a few years since you were on the podcast, but she is returned. So thank you. Welcome.
Terrific. We're always great to see you, Michelle. And this is a particularly interesting opportunity for me because most people know me not as the infection control speaker or the infection protection speaker, but rather the coding person. And so the question is how did I get into this? Well, I'll tell you how I got into talking about infection protection. With my own allergies. You're looking at an allergy girl here. I have something called Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is an autoimmune disease that it's not, I don't even call it disease. I call it a condition because it's a genetic condition that often stays dormant and people don't get symptomatic until their later years. So they used to think it was like osteoporosis, that old lady kind of thing. It's not. And often because it's autoimmune, it's guessed wrong a whole bunch of times before it's guessed right. Now, in my case, mine was actually diagnosed when I was 27, which is a few years ago. And I was stable with it for years, although when I got to be about 30 to 35, I started having lots of sinus problems. And I've had 3 sinus surgeries. And multiple, then we started, it's like, I finally said, hey, how did we get here? And that's when the allergy part started coming forward. And I also have a sister that's younger than me that's way worse. She's anaphylactic shock allergic to name it. Her protocol is if she goes into anaphylaxis, which she's done many times, we give her 2 epi shots and have to get her to an ER within 12 to 13 minutes or she will die, or I got to be ready to do a trach. Ew. Anyway, so with all of that as a background, I'm very, very sensitive to how we're cleaning, what we're cleaning with, what works, what doesn't work, and is it going to cause my allergies to flare? So, and this whole thing about allergies, there's actually, I think the number is 55 million people that suffer from allergies every year in the U.S. And it's actually the 5th leading cause of cost in our hospital systems. This is a much bigger problem than dentistry has ever given it attention. And I know we have our protocols for infection control. Spray, wipe, spray. Don't be spraying nothing around me. Thank you very much. So that's how I got involved in this, and that's why this subject is so important for me. Because yes, it's all important to everybody now. You notice how we're getting a lot of attention? All of us are thinking, how are we going to ever go back to the office? What about the aerosols? What about? And there's a lot of things we don't have answers to, but there's a lot of things we do have answers to. So, and then the thing is that you're a clinician like me. The ideal day, when exactly is that going to happen? I haven't had it yet, whether it was a clinical day or any other darn day of my life. But the ideal day, you have that morning huddle, those great huddles that you have in the morning. There's a lot of huddles that are like a waste of time, but the really good ones, you talk about what your day is going to be and how often does it go like that? Mm-hmm. First patient comes in late. The second patient, the doctor's patient it goes from a two-surface restoration to an endo. You're now waiting for the doctor to come and check you. The next person came early because they always do, right?
Yeah.
So now you got the business professionals coming back, breathing down your neck, and eventually you say, hey, can you put the person in the other room? And what happens is somebody else turns over that room. And often it's something that might not have some person that might not have the same level of training and understanding that you do. Mm-hmm. That's where we really get in trouble. So anyway, I don't know. I'm kind of going on here a little bit about this, but one of the things that was appealing, and I worked with Air Techniques on other parts of their business line because they have a very robust business line. And I particularly like their Spectra caries detection tool. It's a great thing. And when I talk about minimally invasive dentistry, I was talking a lot about that as well as their cameras. But when they got this Monarch line, it opened up a whole different thing to me because I'm going to be very honest here. My experience with infection control stuff, yawn, boring. And so does that mean I pay attention? No. And do I like reading labels? Yeah, not so much. But one of the things I love about the Monarch system is it's just that, it's a system. Just wrote an article recently and I called it a functional family. Most of us know like this. Yeah. Did you come from a dysfunctional family, Michelle?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we all do.
Luckily, they don't listen to those podcasts. They're so dysfunctional.
Yeah. And it's dysfunctional dental offices. Yeah, hello. So I wrote this article on how a functional family, I idealized it. I talked about what it could be. And it's the same thing, though, when we have a functional family system of products that all work together. Because I've seen people use stuff on surfaces that, first of all, it's not even made for that surface. Yeah. They're destroying the equipment. They're destroying, and they're not even making anybody safe. And that's the whole thing on, an infection. Why bother if we're not going to do it right? And then I've been through, this is not my first time through. The COVID crisis certainly brought it forward, but this is not my first time around, depending on how long you've been in dentistry. I went through the AIDS crisis. I actually go back to the maskless, gloveless days. And boy, we made some mistakes back then. I hope that we don't repeat this time around. And, is it better to put plastic all over everything? I don't know. What are we doing to the environment when we do that? Those are questions I think we're going to have to really look at here coming up. So did you have any questions that you want to ask me about the products?
Well, I did. So you just mentioned using products on equipment that's not really meant for. And that always dings in my little head, people using it that haven't been trained. So right now with the outbreak, and depending on whenever you listen to this particular episode, we might be a year past it. But I think still what I'm trying to explain to people is that, okay, so let's say your front office team is like, oh, I want to decontaminate the front office or the waiting room. And I'm like, they need to understand their PPE that they're supposed to be wearing when they're using this. They can't just go grab from, the tub and grab the towelettes barehanded without gloves, mask, and all the appropriate PPE. And so when you talk about like not using it on equipment that it wasn't meant for, like it wasn't meant for that credenza in the front office that holds the coffee thing. Like it's not meant for that, or the people who shouldn't be using it without training.
Well, even bringing forward the whole idea of PPE and the business professionals. Yeah, when did that ever get trained? I mean, I know again I have a couple of friends that have been, okay, I'm going to use an inappropriate term, but they were infection controlled Nazis, okay, their whole lives. And they're like, really, like, oh my gosh, this is what we've been preaching. The thing about them is that what I know from them is what a lot of people don't know is that our infection control OSHA training is required to be in our offices every single year. It's kind of like, you know, how you have to redo the CPR every 2 years to keep your certification. Infection control is supposed to be, but people go to courses and they take a course online and you think, oh, that's good enough. No, it's not. They need to be trained in every person in the staff because you're supposed to have a book and you're supposed to sign off on it and all kinds of steps that we're just kind of just skipping over. And then there's the old, you know, what's dentistry famous for? Our hand-me-down training. So I didn't learn it well. So since I'm doing it bad, let me train you because you're new.
Exactly. Don't they call those legacy errors too? They just pass on the legacy of the mistake.
Exactly.
I forget what it used to be, but was it like they cut off the ends of the ham and for years?
Oh, yeah. The roast that doesn't fit in pan. Right,
Yes.
I used to use that story, right? You know, the lady watched her mother make it all these years and she always cut off the whole ends of the roast. And so when she got old enough to start cooking herself, she always cut off the end of the roast. And she finally asked her mom, why did we do that? And she goes, well, my mom taught me to do that. So she went to grandma, why did we do that? And grandma finally said, because I didn't have a big enough pan. Hello?
No one's asking why. No one's asking why do we need to do this? Yeah.
This is going to be a really interesting one. The thing what I believe is that where we are now is it's not scary to me as much as it's just like it's like a picture frame to which we don't know what we're looking at. We just don't know what it's going to look like on the other side. And as a futurist, what I believe is that we should be building it. Not waiting for it to happen, then figure out how we're going to deal with it. We kind of did that with the infection control in the 80s. It was like after the AIDS crisis, all of a sudden we had all this stuff that felt like it got thrust on us suddenly. You know, that was all in the background being built all the years before that. And the AIDS crisis just we had to put it into play.
Right.
So that's where the smart practitioners to me now are building that future, not just waiting for somebody else to come up with, oh, what's CDC going to say? Oh, what's this one going to say? Hey, what about using our brains?
Yeah.
And so even with the product training, do you like reading labels?
Kind of, sorta. You know, what's funny for me is that I read labels as they come in. So like a long time ago when I even learned the word IFU or instructions for use, I was like, what? And then I actually did start reading the labels and then I became a kind of a crazy person with food labels. So I'm a big label reader. However, when they are not on the back of all the details on the back of the box, then I don't always take that next step to go find the pamphlet or the booklet or anything like that. So that's where I fall off.
If we're using the same products over and over, if there's been a change in labeling, we don't even know it.
Yeah.
Because we assume we already know it. Now, that happened to be, let's go back to my thyroid thing. I was, again, diagnosed with thyroid disease years and years ago. I was on a medication and I was on it stable for 25 years. And then I started having my legs ache and this, all these crazy symptoms that people had. Oh, that's because you travel a lot. That's because you're in a lot of different hotels and that, and all that's true. And it just still didn't explain it. I was hospitalized several times, lots of different tests and all that. And finally, I found an endocrinologist that specializes in Hashimoto's thyroiditis. And which is like, okay, most endocrinologists spend most of their time with just, with diabetes because that's such an epidemic. So they may not know as much about thyroid and they may not know as much about the subset of Hashis. So I had this Hashi specialist that looked at the same blood tests and he said, here's where it happened. This is where we can track it. And I was diagnosed with thyrotoxic myopathy. I'm going, what? I didn't like the name of it, but basically it's a body-wide inflammatory condition that affects your long muscles, your pelvic girdle, and your shoulder. I always thought it was just removing the light so much, right? Before I got my headlamp, and loose. Anyway, what he said was that my overall hormone balance had shifted after a hysterectomy. And my medication that I was taking on a stable basis was now toxic for me. We had to change the dosage. But here's where the question came in, bringing it back to what we said about reading labels. He said, when are you taking your pill? And I said, I'm taking a handful with other stuff. He goes, no, you have to take it first in the morning before anything else with a full glass of water, and I can have nothing else for half an hour. And that's what it says on the label. Okay, I've been on this medication. I've been on the medication for 25 years. When was the last time I read that label?
True.
And did it say that back then? I don't know. That's kind of, that's the analogy of where we're at now. It's like, we got to go back and really read the labels now. Are we sure? Are we remembering it properly? Did it change?
Yeah.
Because I know, Lord knows in the years that I've been, there's so many things that have changed that, what we tell people. I mean, I was just reading another article about chlorhexidine, and we shouldn't be using chlorhexidine with perio because of the way it affects the fibroblasts. Okay, how many people is chlorhexidine still part of their hygiene protocol? By the way, that information came from 1991. Hello.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I mean, it does develop a call to action of like every quarter. Do we read? Every month do we read? Do we reevaluate our products? I'm curious why the Monarch line is one for you with your allergies. Is it less toxic?
There's less toxicity. It's partly its delivery system, and plus it's the idea of a system that works together. They even have it color coded. The green products are the surface disinfectant. So those are the ones that we can use on our countertops, and they have a broad spectrum kill rate, but these wipes have green lids. Now, here's another thing that I was reminded of recently is, often those lids sit open. Okay, someone takes them out and they don't always close them. First of all, we have evaporation of the product. We don't know what kind of degradation of the product. Plus, we're smelling those chemicals.
Yeah.
That's huge. That's a really, really huge thing. Then there's the vinyl upholstery cleaner. That's our chairs. The thing is really think about what we understand about COVID so far and that particle size, how thorough we're going to have to be in wiping down those chairs. But not only the thoroughness of it, what are we doing to the materials? And I've seen, again, over the years where chairs get really faded out and nasty looking because they're not using that right product. Now, the blue products in the Monarch line are for instrument. Okay, those are for instrument cleaning and the decontamination on that first level before they go into sterilization. That's an important thing. Yellow that's important, especially when we're talking about our equipment, because that's the suction, our lines cleaner, and cleaning all of those things out. And then there's pink, and what I like about that's about me. Pink is about protecting my hands. They have an alcohol, they have the sanitizer, the alcohol. This is another one that I was just reminded of recently. How long do you use the alcohol hand cleanser stuff?
Like, how long does it stay wet, or how long what's
the instructions for use? That's the key thing is how many of us were actually taught that? Okay, so instead of having, washing our hands, we have that stuff. You're actually supposed to do it, I learned, for 20 seconds, the same length of time you'd be washing your hands when you're using.
So rubbing or letting it stay wet?
Basically do it the same way as you do with your hands. You need to have it, and you go around the thumbs and the pan. Yes, with the sanitizer. Otherwise, you would not get the full effect of it. But again, it's the right product on the right surface for the right amount of time. That's so key to it, and with the right colors. Yeah, hey, I can do that. Yeah, that is quite nice. And you're not destroying that very expensive dental chair or, changing the patient's perception because, where I have a lot of questions. So I have reusable safety glasses that I do with soap and water, or I actually a lot of times will use my, product, my disinfectant on it afterwards. And, but it leaves that film, or it leaves, if I don't dry them off all the way and they get those water spots or something, my patient's always like, are these clean? And I feel like they think that about the chair too. Like when it starts getting dingy and gross, is this clean? I don't want to sit in that. We're going to have to prove two things to our patients when we get back. One, how safe we're keeping the environment for them. Two, how that we're an essential service because dentistry has been deemed non-essential. We got some real marketing issues coming up already. The other thing too is about how we drained our water lines and our water bottles and all that? Did we do what we needed to do at our offices before we closed them down? A lot of times we didn't think about that step.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to do some testing and some shocking of our lines to wake things back up to get back to the office. And I think that's a opportunity for a practice to really, again, look at the products they're doing, do retrain. We're going to have to be trained. I think that if we're we talked about what's the list of things that we can wake up our economy. Well, what's our list of things that we can wake up dentistry? And one, I think, should be infection control training for the entire staff. Because the rules are going to change. We don't know what they're going to look like exactly, but we need to go through the basics of what we had before, the standard. See, that's another thing that makes me crazy. Through this whole thing, when people talk about universal precautions, and I'm like, guys, that
standard
changed
precautions.
in 2003. That changed 17 years ago. And see that. So what are the odds of same people that talk about universal precautions are also haven't read the labels?
And it's so true. And one good thing about you, so you mentioned contact time and how long things, so like the hand sanitizer needs to stay on our hands the proper amount of time, but also so does our environmental infection control products and we can also, I would love to talk about the spray wipe spray versus wipe, which we're now should be calling just clean and disinfect because that might look different for everybody. But the Monarch line is a one step, 1 minute.
That's the part, because that's the other thing that I think we're going to need to adjust to in the future in our offices is we really finally have to build in infection control time.
Into our time. Yes. Thank you.
Time. If I really had my ideal world, what if we actually set in, we also create a documentation time? Wow. But we have no time put into our schedule for infection control or for documentation. And yet I just did an article I called it, how artificial intelligence changes the future. And I actually called the article Back to the Future. Why Back to the Future? Because it's the idea of back in the early days of computers, it was called GIGO, G-I-G-O, for garbage in, garbage out. And with our documentation, if we don't put with the artificial intelligence, they could really, it has the power with algorithms. Oh my God, I used a math term, my hygienist. Do math. Anyway, that they can to look at the data and see what trends and patterns. And we're hearing a lot about that when they talk about what are the patterns that we're going to have for where the infections are and all that stuff. Well, with our data, the data of dental offices is codes. And so if we don't put the codes in, we can't get the codes out. So when the algorithms look through artificial intelligence to see the patterns of dentistry, they're not getting accurate patterns because we aren't putting in all the accurate codes that we could. Therefore, we're basing our supposition on a wrong premise. And that's the same thing. We don't add time for infection. What is the derivation of how long should we have for a patient? And we skipped, and part of it is we don't put any, and this is part of my message that I'm giving my teledentistry, is that we really don't value diagnosis and assessment very much in dentistry. We just kind of jump over that one. Hello, we don't make a diagnosis. The answer to every coding question is what's the diagnosis? Because we don't put value in it. That's why when offices now can do what they can do in teledentistry, it's like, yeah, but we're not actually touching on them. We're not actually putting a crown in. We're not actually scraping anything. That's what we made dentistry into.
Yeah, 100%. Exactly. So can I just go back to the one-step process? Can you break that down for everyone? Because if we're typically taught a two-step process, right? How does this work with a one-step? So with Monarch, what I read was that it's a one-step when the surface is already clean and you can just wipe it down, of course. And then also that the towelette is designed so that it grabs more bioburden. So you're cleaning the bioburden, but there's enough saturation of the towel that the product is sitting on the surface for the correct amount of contact time.
The other thing, too, is what concerned me always with infection control training is with the visibly soiled aspect of is it clean? If
not
I think about that as soiled, I'm thinking of dirt. I'm thinking of my kids when they fell in the dirt and they got dirt, right? It's like, what is visibly soiled? How is that actually defined? And if we also know that, when we're talking about bio, we ain't seen it until it's lots. I think one of the things that I probably don't know enough about, deeply enough about, but I know enough that it's the way we're managing, again, our water lines as well as our equipment. I mean, one of the things that Air Techniques has is they have some of the best amalgam separators as well as other, big time equipment that we as hygienists expect just to be there. We don't even know what that stuff is actually. But a lot of the things we do on a daily basis can add to the breakdown of those machines, of those very expensive machines that would shut our whole business down when they break down. And so that's where using the right products in the right lines in our vacuum systems are so important. I just think that one, wormy slide, where you can see them in the water lines, because we know just within weeks we've got bio burden. But as hygienists, we do understand that. We do understand that, but sometimes we don't apply it to that, the lines thinking. And the time, we always suction and we always, run the water, clean out the water and air syringe between patients. We do.
Yeah. Well, and that's a thing, going back to giving ourselves enough time to perform proper infection control, because, I just read the other day, a breakdown of an appointment, right? You always see that, like, 10 minutes, greet the patient, x-rays, medical history, all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, that's okay, but that should.
With my fibrotoxic myopathy.
Yeah. And I'm like,
Hashimoto's. By the way, I was also diagnosed with hypersensitivity pneumonitis because I'm highly allergic to pigeon poop. I'm writing all this down on my history.
Okay. So if I could loop it back to the equipment, because I think after all of this, we're all going to be very aware of how much or what we need to do to care for our suctions, because we want them to stay powerful enough to suck up that spatter spray and aerosol. And that, what are we looking at when we're having to take care of our suctions? Like, what does that mean? Is it just running the line every day with the Monarch solution, or like, what are we doing?
Running the day. First thing in the morning. And one of the things, I did a lot of temping for a while to get a feel for dentistry and where we're at. I've temped in more than 250 Chicago area offices. If you can see my thing, I'm twitching now. My eyes twitching. Yeah. Here's the thing about that whole, are we maintaining things? We don't know. It's in a temp situation. We definitely don't know what's been done and how these lines have been taken care of or not. And we need to, and I see offices there to try to save time, so they're going to set up the night before for the first patient the next day. You can't do it. You can't do it that way. You can't have that pre-set up room, and you never can open the instruments until the patient sees you do it. I mean, there's so many habits like we've got that, especially hygienists, we're always trying to be efficient.
Oh yeah, okay. I'm guilty of that too. 100%.
Yeah. We can be efficient, but we're not very effective, because a patient needs to see us open up those sterilization pouch. We need to set up that room so we can do the sanitation of that room, including doing the suction we need, and not from some bucket that we have some kind of halfway mix that we make. That's one of the things, again, I like about the Monarch products. It's a system, and it's all pre-measured. It's in a nice little bottle and container that you're doing it the right way, and they're getting the right level of the chemicals versus the water. Mm-hmm. If you have something that you're mixing yourself, I have concerns about if we're mixing it right. And again, who's doing it? Did we have somebody, we're running late. Okay, you do over there, just read the bottle, and they don't, and they just throw water again. So it's the efficacy of the product. So we need to do that in the beginning of the day, between each patient, as well as at the end of the day. And that's only the daily. There's also the weekly and the monthly and other monitoring. How are we going to test? What are we going to test with? Are we going to test with something that's something we're going to use chairside? Is that test the best test? Is that a test that is kind of like, we think of it as a screening test? And if that's screening, do we need to have a laboratory test to really test how well and how clean everything is?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really interesting point, because I've been explaining or really pushing that we need standard operating procedures for everything. Absolutely. But, I was kind of keeping in my head, I've only temped on one office on maternity. I am not a temp. I have lots of lots of love for those people who can just roll up in an office and go with the flow. The moment I can't find gauze, my brain just like, oh my God, I'm not gonna be able to do anything today. I can't find anything. I don't know how to do this. Their insurance aren't as good as mine. And oh my God, I'm not that hygienist that can do it. But and the thing that always kind of kept in the back of my head too is like, would I know how to run their suction lines? Like from a temp's perspective, I think standard operating procedures that are quick and easy for that temp to get to would be super important.
And OSAP has been doing a campaign here for a little while, and it's called Building a Culture of Safety Within Your Practice. This culture of safety is really an important concept. And back when I did do the temping, I had a checklist that I used when I would be given an office. And often I was talking to the person that answered the phone, which isn't always the person that's most astute about all the operations of the office, because I had a whole question. And one of the things I would ask is, what is your infection control protocols? Do you have them? Who's going to show me those when I arrive there? Will I be able to meet with the doctor? Should I talk about how I can hand off the patients when they come in to do the evaluation? But here's the key question that answered so many other questions is, how long before we see the patients can I arrive? And if they say, we get there 10 minutes before, I know it's going to be a problem day. If they tell me a half an hour, I know it's good, because it takes me a full half hour when I know the equipment and when I know the protocols and the standard operating procedures to set up for the day. Mm-hmm. So if I'm going into a whole strange office that I've never been at before, I sure as heck need more than a half an hour. And that's one of the things is, do they have standard operating procedures? Do they have the proper infection protection manual? You should be able to ask anybody in the office a question about where something is, how we're using it, and whatever. They should know that, because we're all supposed to be equally trained on it. Now, there's definitely some people that do it more often, so they're going to be even more familiar. But everybody, I just read another thing on Facebook this morning. It was a doctor that said he's been seeing emergency patients, and one of the things that he's realized is he has no clue where anything is in his office. He doesn't know how they run things. He just doesn't know any of it.
Right.
And that's a problem.
That's a problem. And, going back to knowing your instructions for use and your contact time, because if I'm a temp, how do I know that I'm using the Monarch? Let's say I'm used to using the Monarch line. That's 1 minute kill time of all the different ones. And, Air Techniques has a really good diagram that shows like contact time for like bacteria and fungi and viruses and TB and all those things, right? And one of them on there is 10. How do I know that I'm used to this 1 minute and this thing is saying 10 and I'm just like setting up and 5 minutes later I got another patient back? Well, that hasn't killed everything on the surface.
Yeah. Exactly. What's funny is you just said about something that we had another thing that we've got to be careful when products are given names that are good marketing names versus what they actually are. The example I'm using is there's a product that was it was an Oral-B product, and now another company bought it. It's called Minute Foam Fluoride. Well, if you know what the studies are on using fluorides, that's not the most efficacious delivery system anyway. And even though it's called Minute Foam, if you read the label, you have to use it 4 minutes.
Yeah. It's an excellent point.
We're going to use a minute here, a minute there. Yeah. You know who's really got a good equation on that is Rachel Wald. She teaches her clients 20-20-20 of a hygiene appointment. Okay. The first 20 minutes is assessment. Okay. If you have a scaler in your hand any sooner than 20 minutes into the appointment, you haven't done a complete assessment. Okay. But people are going, I only get a half an hour for a child. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Why? That's a nonsensical, artificial, even the difference between a child and a prophy. That's a nonsensical, no science distinction that we've had in our offices. They don't make any sense. So the thing is that 20 minutes for the assessment, and this is a great story on so many levels that, who else emphasized that? Our queen. We all know who our queen is, right? Queen Esther.
Esther Wilkins.
We all bought Esther Wilkins' book, right?
Oh, for sure.
Heavy Esther Wilkins. Here's their story though with Esther Wilkins. We know she lived to be 100, right? Well, a friend of mine was a friend of hers, and she said on the day Esther Wilkin dies on her 100th birthday on a Saturday. On the Friday, she put in the 13th revision of her book. Okay. First of all, you talk about living your life to the end of your life, right? Living your life to the fullest. There's an example there. But here's another part of it. Isn't that book now? It's 69 chapters now.
Wow.
The first 37 are on assessment and infection protection. 37 chapters. Our queen spent on it. Yeah, we don't build it into our appointments in any way, shape, or form. Is if you're spending more than 20 minutes scaling, it's not a prophy, first of all. Not a prophy. You haven't made the diagnosis. And the other 20 minutes is for what? Room turnover, seating the patients, all that stuff we started talking about before with the medications. You know, how do we do somebody's health history and everything else we need to do in 10 minutes? Because we're multitasking. We're over here. We're not even looking at them.
We're only half listening to them. We're letting the contact time still sit on from the previous patient.
Yep. And we always multitask oral hygiene instructions, don't we? And then hand them a toothbrush. Don't code for it. Don't write it down what we gave them. But yet if they continue with poor health, what happens? We blame them. That's called abuse when you blame the victim. And again, what a great opportunity at this point to do a podcast on infection protection.
So true. Wow. Yeah. And I'm real thankful for Air Techniques for, bringing this information to our listeners, because I think everyone is going to be it's swimming in it right now. Like they want answers. They're going to want
answers.
Yes, exactly. And the pushback that I've gotten from people when I talk about infection control is like, we don't want to scare patients. And I'm like, but why would you scare a patient when you tell them what you're doing to protect them?
Hello, they come to us for our expertise. They come for us because they trust us. By the time their butt's in our chair, they already trust us, and we spend a whole lot of time behaving in ways that makes them not trust us as much.
So true. And it doesn't make sense to me when we have the internet at everyone's super informed. So that to think that they're not already concerned, that they don't understand, the disease process or the chain of infection, it's crazy for us to think that. And now we even have hospitals that give you, when I left the hospital last year, they gave me this, this is what a healthcare associated infection is. And here are the signs of it. And did your, nurse wash their hands? Did the doctor wash their hands? Did they do, they're not stupid. If they've ever stepped into a hospital, they've seen these signs. So why would we think in dentistry that's not going to overflow to us? So I think it's a time that we do start having these conversations, and I really appreciate your time to come on, and again, appreciative to Air Techniques for helping us get this word out.
And then one of the things too, that people can go to the Air Techniques website, and there are webinars, and they have some videos on there. Mm-hmm. And that's where everybody learns in a different way. When I want to learn a skill, I like watching videos. I can start and stop. Let me YouTube it so I can start and stop, so I really learn it, because I need to apply it while I'm learning it. They have that, as well as they can sign up for Lunch and Learns and other things that can bring in right into the office. So then they train everybody together, and that's the key.
Oh, I think that's a very good point. And go head over to their website. We'll have all that stuff in the show notes for you guys. Well, Patty, thank you for coming on and being a guest again. I know it's so easy. I mean, it's been 45 minutes. I don't even know how that's happened. I love learning from you. Thank you for your time and all your effort. And then what's the name of that article again, so people can go take a look?
It's actually called, we get the title. It's Infection Protection, a Functional Family System.
Functional Family
System. It's actually a CE article. So they can read that one, get some good information in there, and then there's a quiz so they can get some CE credit for it.
That's fantastic. Well, Thank you again for your time today, Patty.
Terrific. Thanks so much, Michelle.
Thanks for listening to another episode of A Tale of Two Hygienists, and thanks to Air Techniques. You can find out more about their products at airtechniques.com. And go ahead and follow them on Facebook and Instagram. We always appreciate your ratings and reviews. And if you haven't already, go ahead and hit the subscribe button on this podcast. You can also go to ataleoftwohygienists.com for more resources, and also subscribe to our newsletter. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Thanks for listening to your unofficial dental hygiene podcast.